Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and we learn that if you water your plants too much, they'll freaking explode in this episode. Weird. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. What we're looking at this time is Ewoks issue number 12, entitled The Thorn Monster. It says up there at the top, "Beware the Thorn Monster." The Thorn Monster saying, "Arrgh!" And right to the sign flying next to him saying, "Destroy them," it's Morag, the witch from the cartoon series, back again for her second and last appearance in this series. This was released in November of 1986 and can be found reprinted today in the pages of Star Wars Omnibus, Droids and Ewoks, as with the rest of these series. I should note here that like all the Ewok stories except for Lost in Time, we have three parts to this. We have the Thorn Monster, then part 2 is the Brown Forest of Endor, with a question mark there on the end. Then we have part 3, the Wrath of Morag. All of which, though, is one story as usual. This one is a bit strange on the whole biology aspect of it. This issue starts with Logray taking basically a spa kind of day. Now he goes over to a nice hot spring, lays his staff aside, gets stripped down to his teddy bear skin, or bear fur. Sorry, there's a bad pun in there. He's just kind of chilling in the water. Until Morag, the evil witch, turns it essentially into tar, sticks him in there, out of reach of his staff. Now with Logray incapacitated, she thinks it's time to be able to take on the Ewoks and destroy their village. Meanwhile, Wicket and Nisa are out doing some gardening. And when he pours a whole bucket of water on some plants, Nisa warns him, "Hey, don't forget, Logray told us that too much water can be as harmful to a plant as too little. Remember that lesson, kids." It's the entire crux of the story. So, Morag shows up, starts zapping the Ewoks and freezing them in place, and then she zaps the ground underneath and turns it into this weird set of vines that are growing and growing and growing and just sucking away all the water out of the environment that would eventually destroy the forest around the village and such. Nisa and Wicket jump in to eventually save the day. They see what's going on. They race off to find Logray, only they can't get Logray out of the tar, so Logray tells Wicket to take his staff, take it to the plant creature, the Thorn Monster, and slam it, stab it essentially, into the ground at the base of the vine. That will destroy the magic and destroy this weird, rapidly growing vine that's becoming huge as it goes along. Upon arriving, though, Morag realizes what's about to happen, and before he can stab it, she transforms those vines into the Thorn Monster. And since a Thorn Monster can walk around, it has no roots per se, there is no need at this point for it to be attached to land. So stabbing it in to mess up the vine system with magic isn't going to do a freaking thing to this thing. Instead, it grows, it marches around, everywhere it steps, it sucks up more water from the ground, and it looks as though the day is over for the Ewoks. Oh no, in fact, we even get to the point where Logray is crying, that it looks like the end is nigh. Except, remember, Logray is in water, or at least in some water near another bigger body of water at these hot springs and whatnot, and Wicket and Nisa are able to trick the Thorn Monster into the water. Well, what does it do? Well, exactly what Nisa warned him, remember? Too much water can be just as harmful as too little. He sucks up so much water, he gets huge, bloated, and hut-like until, boom! The big plant monster explodes from the inside out, thanks to having too much water. I'm gonna have to try this at some point. You gotta wonder, though, whenever there's a flood, or whenever there's like a hurricane and tons of water, why don't we see a lot of deaths due to exploding plants? If this actually works, then we should see some seriously screwed up situations when we see floods, but it doesn't. So I'm assuming, I'm no biology guy, but I'm assuming this is impossible. Maybe though it's because there's the magic involved or something. Maybe there's magic in the lake. Who knows? But suffice to say, they cause it to explode, and it gets Morag to fall down into the water all wet. And, of course, they have to make the joke, the pun, right? She says, if there's one thing I hate more than Ewoks, it's water, right? Because she's a witch, right? The whole, I'm melting kind of thing. Only in this case, she's not melting, she's just annoyed. And then it starts raining from all the water coming back down from the plant monster. It's a bit of a mess. But hey, as Wicket says, It sure beats carrying a bucket. Ha 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 ha. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Whoop. And the story is over. An unusual tale. I mean, we essentially see Logray in his skivvies, and we learn a biological fact that's not actually a fact. So, beyond that, there's not really much to say about this issue. It is definitely a weird one, but weird is what we get with Ewoks, the comic series and the cartoon series, frankly. And let's at least note and give credit where credit is due that Dave Manak in this issue was able to bring Morag back. She's a major character in the cartoon series, but she only shows up twice in the comics, with this being her last appearance. So at least the threat this time has a tie to the threat in the cartoon series by it being Morag. There is that specific connection, and at least this time Morag gets the idea you got to get Logray out of the way to carry out her plot, because usually he's the one who foils her schemes. So, this issue, The Thorn Monster, is it an essential read? Absolutely not. Not for modern, Marvel, or Ewoks readers, nor for Ewoks cartoon viewers. It just isn't a necessary tale. It's throwaway, and you'll just forget about it afterwards. Unless seeing Logray in his skivvies scars your psyche, which it does certainly have the potential to do. With that, we'll wrap up this episode, and apparently these weird gardening tips. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.